Good morning. We are reading Fear Street, chapter number 7, chapter 7. Hello, my name is Ruben Shoup. I am the YA horror author of Vampire Juice and chapter 7. So for those of you who don't know, we have our main character, Melissa, who is being haunted. She got a new car, and some entity took over, and it slipped on some oil spill and it crashed. This entity took, during her birthday party, it ransacked her presence. See what else happened. She kept feeling something in her room, and now what has happened is she sees this stranger. Is she scared? No. Alright, so chapter 7. She backed away from him and tripped on her sneakers and fell over backward. He put his hands on his hips and smiled down at her. Oh yeah, he said that she killed him. Alright. Obviously enjoying seeing her helpless on the floor like that. She saw that he had tattoos on the back of his right hand, but she couldn't make out what they were. Let me up, he sneered again. Get up. I'm not stopping you. Melissa rolled to the right and jumped to her feet. They stared at each other across her bed. I've never seen you before, she said. He tossed his head and then smoothed back his greasy hair. Convenient memory, he muttered barely. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop being so mysterious. He seemed to find that very funny. I'm not being mysterious. I told you flat out you killed me. Take a good look. Remember me now? You're crazy. If you're dead, how can you be standing here now? What are you, a ghost? What should she do? Run from the room? Call for her father? No. She wanted some answers from this strange intruder. She wanted to find out what was going on once and for all. Don't play innocent. He turned his back on her. You mean to say that you killed me and didn't even notice? You mean you're so rich that... I didn't kill you, Melissa screamed. If I killed you, how did I do it? His hands coiled into fists. He remained with his back to her. I don't remember, he said in a flat, emotionless voice. Most of my memory's gone, but I know one thing for sure. You killed me. That's ridiculous, Melissa cried. Tell me the truth. What are you doing here? Why are you trying to scare me with this ghost nonsense? How did you get in? I'm dead, he said, turning around. His angry expression had softened. His eyes were watery. I'm dead because you killed me. His words chilled her. He wasn't joking, but what he was saying was impossible. You're as alive as I am, she cried. She walked over to him, reached out, and grabbed his arm. Her hand seemed to go right through him. All she felt was a wisp of cold air. See, that was the sign that he's always by her, is that feeling of cold. Oh no, she cried, covering her mouth with her hand. She stepped back. Her heart was pounding now. She felt cold all over, chilled inside and out. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. He smiled a grim smile. Her horrified reaction seemed to please him. You believe me now? You're a ghost. She wanted to run, but her legs were trembling. She felt weak all over. She slumped down onto the bed and stared up at him. "Now you believe in ghosts?" he said, his smile fading. "Isn't it amazing how a few seconds can change your life, or end it?" "But I know I didn't kill you," Melissa insisted. "It isn't something I'd forget, you know." "You did." He pulled out the chair in front of her dressing table, and turned it around and sat down on it, leaning his chin against the back seat. "I can't remember how, but you killed me." "Why? Why did I kill you?" Melissa asked. "He'd be good looking if he washed his hair and stopped sneering like that," she thought. "I don't remember," he said, with some sadness. "What's your name?" "Paul." "Paul what?" "I don't remember." "Huh? You don't remember your own last name?" "I told you, I don't have much memory. Death screws up in a lot of ways, you know." "Oh, how would you know?" He slammed both hands against the chair back. They didn't make a sound. "I keep fading in and out. I can't control it. I can hardly remember anything." "If you have no memory, what makes you think I killed you? You're haunting the wrong house, Paul, and that's the truth." He shook his head. "No, it's one of the few things I do know. You killed me, Melissa. I do know one other thing, too." "What?" "I know why I've come back." He stood up and started toward her. "I've come back to pay you back. I've come back to kill you." "No!" She jumped off the bed and started backing toward the bedroom door. "He's crazy," she thought. "Totally crazy. I've got to get away." He stared into her eyes. "Scared, huh?" "Yes," she admitted. "Good. You should be. You finally got wise." I'll scream." "You screamed before. It didn't do much good. And it won't help much to run away either. You can't run from a ghost, Melissa. Haven't you seen any horror movies?" "You're making a big mistake, Paul. I didn't kill you, really." She was only a few feet from the door. If she backed up a few more steps, she could be out of the room and down the steps. But then what? "You've got to believe me," she said. "I never knew you. I've never seen you. I couldn't have been the one. It's all a big mistake." "I didn't say anything." You just shook his head, staring coldly at her. She realized she was shivering all over. It was freezing cold in the room, the sudden cold last night, the sudden cold in the car. He brought the cold. He did it, she realized. She backed up and bumped into the wall. He moved quickly. Before she could get through the door, he was right in front of her. He raised his arms to block her path. His face was inches from hers. He was so cold, so terribly sickening cold. "I didn't do it, Paul." Her voice came out, choked and small. "You're a liar," he said quietly, and his handsome face suddenly turned quite ugly. "A rich liar, and rich liars have to die." Ooh, we're in chapter 8. So what is going to happen? Is Melissa going to die? "No, wait," Melissa pleaded, raising her hands in front of her face as if to shield herself from him. "Wait, for what?" Melissa thought frantically. What could she do to save her life? What could she do? "Take your time," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." She slowly lowered her hands. "Maybe I could help you somehow." A bitter smile crossed his face. "No, really." It was so cold, a damp, chilling cold. She wrapped her arms around herself, but it didn't help. I can help you. I can find the real person who killed you. Where were her parents? Didn't they hear her talking? Weren't they interested in whom she was talking to? If only one of them would come into her room, Paul would surely disappear the way he had in the past, and she'd be safe, at least for a little while. I already told you, Melissa, he said, making fun of her name as he said it. I know who killed me. You did. But you're wrong. Besides, she was thinking fast now, her mind jumping from thought to thought, trying to find some way, any way to stop the ghost from killing her. Don't you want to find out how you died or why? Don't you want to know why? He looked away. He was thinking about what she said. I could help you, she added quickly, encouraged by his silence. I will help you. I'll find out everything for you. I'll do everything I can to find the truth. Really? He looked at her skeptically. Really? She repeated. Really? I can help you if you'll just give me a chance. Well, all right. So do you think he's going to give her the chance? Let's find out. If only he'd back away. She was so cold, so freezing, shivering, shaking cold. Okay, he said. There's no rush. I can kill you any time I want. He started to fade away. First his face and hands, then his jeans and denim jacket. Then he was gone, and only the cold remained. A few minutes later, still trying to warm up, she backed her new car down the drive and headed to Buddy's house. It was a warm night, the temperature still in the 70s. Oh my God, I wish it was the 70s here. But she closed the car windows and turned the heater way up. She had stopped at the bottom of the stairs and considered telling her parents what had happened, but she quickly decided not to. They'd only think she had completely lost it. Even if they didn't think she had gone bananas, they would insist that she'd lie down and take some sleeping pills, or they might even call a doctor. She really wanted to see Buddy. He was a lot more likely to listen to her than her mom and dad. He was a lot more likely to believe her. She hoped. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Thinking about Paul, she drove through a red light. Luckily, there were no other cars nearby. I've got to concentrate on driving, she warned herself. But how could she? She was being haunted by a ghost, a real ghost who had accused her of killing him, a ghost who had come back for revenge. Where have I seen him before? Do I know him? Have I ever seen him? She searched her memory, but came up empty. No. I've never seen him in my life. I don't know anyone named Paul. I've never seen him around school. I don't remember any boy at Shady Side High being killed. No, he's wrong. He's made a terrible mistake, and now what? What am I going to do about it? She suddenly felt a shiver creep down her spine despite the scorching heat inside the car. Paul, are you here? She asked aloud. Silence. Paul, answer me. Are you here now? Silence. No whispering of her name. Complete silence. She uttered a loud sigh, very relieved. Then she thought, what if he is here but isn't answering? A horn honked angrily. She looked back to see why, and realized she had gone through a four-way stop. I shouldn't be driving, she thought. She was almost to Buddy's house. He could drive them to the movies, but how could she go to the movies? She couldn't sit still. She couldn't concentrate on a movie. She had to do something. Maybe Buddy would I know what to do. What to do. A few minutes later, he met her at his front door. Hi, where have you been? He looked at his watch. It's a long story, she said. Aren't you going to invite me in? We'll be late for the movie. He was wearing 501 jeans and a press button down, blue work shirt. He pushed open the screen door and stepped onto the front stoop beside her. I don't want to go to the movie. I want to talk. His brown eyes widened in surprise. He looked past her to the drive. You got your car back. Can I drive it? Yeah, sure. But you weren't listening to me. I really want to talk. Well, there's a real mob scene here. My sister has some friends over. My parents have company, too. He took her arm. Why don't we take a drive and talk? Okay, she said. She finally felt warm again. But the terror of the scene in her bedroom lingered in her mind. She took Buddy's arm. Okay, let's go. Why don't we drive to River Ridge? He asked, a dry smile crossing her face. Okay. That is the Fear Street teenage makeout scene. She dropped his arm. No, I mean it, Buddy. I really need to talk to you. The smile disappeared immediately. Is everything okay? No, she told him. You mean it's about us? You want to talk about you and me? Trying not to get exasperated with him, she shook her head and didn't say anything. He's an okay guy, she thought. I really do care about him, but he sure can be self-centered sometimes. He held open the passenger door, and she slipped into the seat. It was still stifling hot inside the car. She turned off the heater as he walked around to the driver's side. They wouldn't be needing it now. A few minutes later, they were driving slowly along Canyon Road, passing ranch-style houses with a seat, small lawns on both sides of them. I don't know where to start, Melissa said, leaning her head on his shoulder. This car handles great, he said. What's the problem, Lisa? Do you remember anyone named Paul at school? Someone named Paul who was killed? Killed. He turned his head to give her a confused look. Yeah, killed. Paul something. I don't know his last name. Buddy thought about it. No one from school has been killed. I don't think so. Well, who is this guy anyway? I don't know. But remember, I told you I thought there was someone in my room and I screamed and then we couldn't find anyone? Yeah, of course, I remember. Well, she stopped. Would he laugh to her? Would he think she was nuts? Or would he believe her? It was too late to back down now. She had to tell him and hope she could convince him. Please don't say anything until I've told you the whole story, okay? Again, he looked confused. He started to turn left on Perk Drive. No, don't go through town, she said, putting her hand on his arm. Please turn right. Let's just drive out to the country where there are no distractions. He obediently turned right. Melissa, please stop all this suspense. Just tell me what's the matter. She told him the whole story, speaking rapidly as if it would be more believable, making more sense if she got it all out at once. She was out of breath by the time she told Buddy how she persuaded the ghost to let her help him, to let her live for a while. They were outside of Shady Side now, out in farm country, dark and flat. Buddy pulled the car off the road onto the tall grass of the shoulder, but he didn't cut the engine. He turned to her, leaned close to her, and put a warm arm around her shoulder. Lisa, you're shaking. I'm scared, Buddy. He didn't say anything. She looked up to find him staring at her. Well, say something. What do you think? She asked impatiently. The full moon was low over the flat farm fields. Its yellow light Sorry about that. Yellow light reflected off the shiny hood of the car. The wisps of gray-blue clouds floated in front of it, and it suddenly grew darker. At first I thought you were joking, Buddy said, his hand gently squeezing her shoulder. I'm not, she said quickly. No, I see. He stared out through the windshield at where the moon had been before it had been blanketed by the clouds. He seemed to be thinking hard. Finally he said, You really don't believe in ghosts, do you? Melissa thought she might cry. She took a deep breath and held it. She didn't want to cry in front of him. She didn't want to cry at all. I knew you wouldn't believe me, she whispered, her face turned away from him. But do you believe it? He asked. Do you really believe a dead boy named Paul is haunting your room and wants to kill you? Don't you find that little hard to believe? Yes, I believe it, Buddy, she said angrily, taking his hand and lifting it off her shoulder. I was there. It happened. It all happened. I believe it. He took her hand, which was cold and wet. Melissa, I'm really worried about you. I think we have to get you some help right away. You won't believe me. How can I? It's not possible. It's just not possible. Okay, Melissa said, crossing her arms, facing forward. Drive back to my house. Come on, let's go. I'm going to prove to you that I'm telling the truth. All right. Do you think Paul is going to show up at her house? I doubt it. All right. So we're on chapter 9. The Volvo's gone. I guess my parents went out. Melissa found the key to her bag, in her bag, and opened the front door. Buddy held the screen door, then followed her onto the house. The hall light was on, but the rest of the house was dark. Melissa walked to the living room and flicked the light switch. I hate a dark house, she said. Buddy followed her into the room, looking uncomfortable, his hands shoved into his jean pockets. Melissa hadn't said a word to him the entire drive home. Lissa, sit down, he said softly, gesturing to the overstuffed, upholstered couch by the bay window. No, she said, shaking her head. Come on up to my room. I want you to meet Paul. You think he's going to show up? But this is a waste of time, he said. Please sit down. Let's try to talk logically about this. I know people say, let's be logical. All right. I am talking logically, she snapped. I'm going to prove it to you now. There's no such thing as ghosts, Buddy said, shaking his head. Even on Fear Street. Fear Street has nothing to do with it, Melissa said. But the Fear Street Prowler does, Buddy said. You've been so upset about Those news stories. You haven't been thinking clearly." Suddenly, they heard floorboards squeaking in the front hall. Footsteps. Buddy looked at her, his eyes wide with surprise and fear. Who was approaching? Was it the prowler? Was it Melissa's ghost? Melissa stared back at Buddy. Neither of them moved. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by the squeaking floorboards. They both turned to the living room entrance as Marta walked into the room. She was carrying a stack of freshly laundered bath towels. Her blonde hair, normally pinned back in a bun with bobby pins, had come undone. "I thought I heard someone come in," she said. "Hi, Marta. It's only us," Melissa said, looking at Buddy, who seemed very relieved. "Your parents went to the Daltons," Marta said. "I was just going to take these towels upstairs, then go to bed." "We'll close everything up," Melissa said. Marta disappeared. They listened to her climb the stairs. "You can close your mouth now," Melissa told Buddy. I just wasn't expecting." He laughed. "You are expecting to see the ghost," Melissa said. "See, you do believe me." His expression turned serious. "Lissa, please, stop talking about this ghost. Let's try to figure out what you really saw. You know you might have dreamed the whole thing. It's possible, isn't it?" "Ah!" she cried out, exasperated. "How could I have dreamed it? I was awake, wide awake." "Maybe you were asleep and didn't realize." She picked up a pillow and angrily heaved it at him. "Just shut up, okay?" He caught the pillow against his chest and dropped it to the door. "Lissa, come on upstairs," she said, walking quickly from the room. "When you see the ghost with your own eyes, maybe you won't think I'm crazy or too stupid to know when I'm awake and when I'm asleep." "I didn't mean," she started, but she was already heading up the front stairs. He followed behind, leaning on the smooth, polished banister. They passed Marta, who was heading down the stairs to her room in the back. If Marta thought it strange that two of them were heading for Melissa's bedroom, her face didn't indicate it. She said good night pleasantly and continued down the stairs. Melissa hesitated at the door in her room. She looked back at Buddy, as if to make sure he was following her and not chickening out. Then she stepped inside and clicked on the lamp. The room had been straightened up. Marta must have put away the clothes Melissa had scattered around. She had even straightened the dressing table, stowing away all of the jars and tubes of blusher, lipstick, and eye makeup. The bed had been made, the covers turned down, ready for Melissa to go to sleep. "Well, where is he?" Buddy asked, squeaking loudly, even though he was standing right next to Melissa. "He's here, I'm sure of it," Melissa said, walking toward the window. "Well, it's not cold in the room, so, I don't know." Buddy plopped down on the bed and lay back, his hands behind his head. "Hey, we're all alone up here," he said, as if realizing it for the first time. "No, we're not," Melissa said quietly. "Paul," she called. "Paul, are you here?" She turned her head and looked around the room. They both listened in silence. Outside, they could hear a car drive past, its radio blaring loudly. "Paul, I brought someone to meet you," Melissa said. "I brought someone else who can help you." Silence. "Someone else who can help you Silence. She turned back to the bed to see if Buddy was laughing at her. If he was laughing, she vowed she'd never speak to him again. But Buddy did not look amused. He was staring at her with concern, but his face drawn in a frown of concentration. Melissa, please come here. He sat up and patted the bedspread beside him. Sit down. Paul. Melissa refused to give up. Come on, Paul. Silence. No sign of the ghost. I can tell he's here. It's so cold in the room, Melissa said with a shiver. Come over here. I'll warm you up. Buddy flashed her a grin and patted her bed again. Paul, are you here? Paul? Melissa couldn't hide the desperation in her voice. He had to show himself now. He had to, or else Buddy would believe she really was crazy. She sat down on the edge of the bed. Buddy put his arm around her gently. Hey, you're freezing cold. Aren't you cold? She asked. Don't you feel it too? Not really, he said, pulling her head down onto his shoulder. It's a warm August night. How is it only 70 degrees in August? Do you realize the average temperature in Texas was 110 degrees? 110. That's not normal. It felt good to snuggle against him. Melissa closed her eyes. Buddy put both arms around her. He pressed his face against hers. I keep thinking maybe this is a gag, he said softly. Some kind of practical joke you're playing on me, except that's really not like you. It's no joke, Melissa said, starting to feel angry again. Did Buddy really think she was doing all this just to put him on? Just for a stupid joke? Paul, please. Where are you? She called. But Buddy pulled her face down close to his and started to kiss her. No, Buddy. She pulled back. I'm really not in the mood. Shh. Come on, he said. He kissed her again, pressing his mouth harder against hers. He wrapped his arms around her tightly. He felt so warm, so safe. For a brief second, she lost herself in the kiss. Then she opened her eyes and looked up. There was Paul, standing over them, watching them kiss. His dark eyes flaring, his mouth twisted angrily. As Melissa tried to pull away from Buddy's embrace, Paul uttered a deafening cry, and arms outstretched hanged at Buddy. Oh my God. He showed himself. Oh my God. Ooh. So what's going to happen? Alright, so we have one more chapter and then I will have to stop. We are starting chapter 10. Alright. Melissa screamed and fell back on the bed, trying to get out of the way. Startled, Buddy jumped to his feet and stared down at her. Lisa, what's the matter with you? He shouted. Melissa stared up at Paul, who was right behind Buddy, his face distorted with anger. Why did you scream like that? Buddy demanded. Have you lost your mind entirely? Buddy, there he is, Melissa cried, still on her back on the bed, pointing at Paul. Huh? Buddy turned around. He and Paul were face to face, but Buddy's confused expression didn't change. Don't you see him? Melissa cried. Didn't you hear him scream at you? Buddy turned back to her, looking very worried. Don't get up, he told her. Just lie still. I'm going to call your parents. Buddy, what on earth? Some boyfriend, Paul scoffed, now looking amused. I'd never treat you like that. Paul Make him see you. Melissa, please, sitting up. No, please lie still, Buddy urged her. You're going to be okay, really. I guess he can't see me, Paul said. He put his hand on Buddy's shoulder. Buddy didn't react. He can't feel me either. He punched Buddy hard on the back. Buddy, watch out, Melissa screamed, too late. But Buddy didn't feel a thing. Paul looked very disappointed. Paul, leave him alone, Melissa cried. I'll go get Marta, Buddy said, looking panicked. Don't get up. We'll call your parents. We'll get you something to calm you down. Buddy, just listen to me. Stop acting so stupid. He can't help it, Paul said, sneering. He is stupid. I'm trying not to laugh. Suddenly, Paul started to fade away. First, he became transparent. Melissa could see right through him. Then he was just a shadowy outline. Then he was gone, leaving behind a rush of cold air. Didn't you even feel that? Melissa asked Buddy. Feel what? The cold air. Buddy turned around. It's breezy out tonight. Look at the curtains. Buddy, I'm not crazy. She climbed to her feet and started pacing along the side of the bed. No, of course not, Buddy said. But maybe you're not having some kind of a breakdown or something. I don't get it, she said, stopping right in front of him. Why can't you just trust me? Paul was right here, right behind you. He screamed at you. He punched you in the back. I'm not hallucinating. It's just that only I can see him. Lisa, calm down. This is real life. It isn't some stupid TV sitcom. Oh, I see. So now I'm crazy and stupid. Oh, my God. Oh, she turned it on him. Oh, too funny. I didn't say that. He put his hands on her shoulders. Can't you see how worried I am about you? She backed away out of his grasp. Well, go worry about me at home, she said angrily. What? He looked really hurt. You heard me. Go home. I can see that I have to figure out what to do about the ghost without any help from you. But I do want to get you help. First, we have to tell your parents about this. Then we have to go home, Buddy, she said wearily. I don't want to leave you like this. Where's the ghost? Where do you see him now? Show me. He faded away. Just go home, please. I'm begging you. She stood staring at her, trying to read his eyes, trying to decide what to do. Okay, I'll go. If you're sure you'll be okay. Yeah, sure, she said. I'm going straight to bed, okay? Call me first thing in the morning. Okay. She gave him a weak smile. A few seconds later, she heard the front door slam behind him. She sat down wearily on the bed and stared out the window. The clouds had drifted away, leaving the moon round and golden again. Thanks, Paul, she said aloud. You cost me a boyfriend. All right, so what I'm thinking is, why can only Melissa see Paul? I don't know what they're called, those people that can see things. Is she one of those? Doesn't know it? Maybe her mom is. I don't know. He appeared at the side of the bed, a pleased look on his face. So, what's the big loss? You can just buy another one, right? What do you keep talking about how rich I am and all the time? I know you rich girls. You're all alike, he said barely. If I were alive, you wouldn't even look at me. How how do you know that? Melissa asked. I know it. You rich people like to stick together. It makes it easier for you to to stick up your noses at people like me. He turned and walked over to the window. Melissa could see the full moon shining right through his back. Buddy isn't rich, she said, wondering why she was bothering to defend herself to him. His father works at a post office. Then what do you see in Buddy? Paul asked, turning around to face her. It can't be his great personality. He laughed a dirty laugh. Oh, shut up, Melissa cried wearily. Why don't you go away and leave me alone? If you were my girl, I would have been nicer to you, Paul said, ignoring her plea. But you never would have given someone like me the time of day. Is he jealous? Melissa suddenly thought. Is that why he appeared and screamed like that when Buddy was kissing me? Go away, please. A shadow fell over his face. His entire body seemed to be swallowed up by it. Now he was nothing but a dark, shadowy outline of himself. I knew you'd break your promise to help me, he said, lowering his voice until once again it sounded like the wind in the car. No, Paul, I should just kill you now. The words were a whisper in her ear. You hit Buddy. He couldn't even feel it, Melissa said, thinking out loud. How are you going to kill me? I did that for your benefit, he said, staring at her, menacingly. I was just fooling around. Don't worry. I can make myself felt. I turned the steering wheel in your precious new car, didn't I? You felt me when I almost pushed you out the window. I managed to open your birthday presents for you. Why did you do that? You don't listen, do you? The shadow shifted, flowed toward her. I came back to kill you. And I will, but not yet. But first, I want to have some fun. Melissa, so what kind of fun is he going to do to her? Melissa thanked the librarian and carried the little roll of microfilm to the viewing booth. It was early Monday morning and the library was empty except for a man with very thick glasses at a table in the front, leaning over a Wall Street Journal, and a shabby, unshaved man in a filthy overcoat snoring loudly in an armchair. I've got to find out the truth about Paul, she thought. Her next thought made her shudder. My life depends on it. Taking a seat in front of a viewer, she thought about Buddy. He really was ridiculous Saturday night, she thought, feeling her anger return. If he'd only just given me a chance instead of acting like I was some kind of raving lunatic. Buddy let her down. She realized at a time when she really needed him. Trying to insert the roll of microfilm, she dropped it and clattered across the floor. She slammed her hand angrily against the side of the machine, scooted her chair back, and went chasing after. It rolled a few inches from the battered, laceless shoes of the sleeping man. Melissa picked it up and carefully, trying not to wake him. But he abruptly stopped snoring and opened one bloodshot eye, raised a finger to his lips, and loudly said, "Shh." Melissa picked up the cartridge and carried it back to the viewer. A few seconds later, she had managed to insert it and was scanning over editions of the Shady Side Courier for the past 6 months. She figured that the death of a local teenager would be front page news. So she carefully scanned every front page. Then, just to be on the safe side, she also checked local news pages and obituary page. It took a long time. She was careful not to skip a single day of the entire 6 months. When she finally finished scanning the most recent paper, she closed her tired eyes and rested them for a few minutes. Nothing. She had found nothing at all. No story about Paul's death. In fact, she hadn't found a story about a single teenager dying. Maybe I didn't go back far enough, she thought. Paul said he thought he had died recently, but he really didn't remember anything about when it had happened. Maybe he's been dead for years, she thought, yawning and stretching. She looked at her watch. It was nearly lunchtime. Had she really been staring into this machine for nearly 3 hours? Tired and discouraged, she returned the microfilm, stepped past the armchair where the man was still snoring away, and headed out the door. The fresh air and bright sunlight felt so good. She crossed the sidewalk to her car and was about to climb in when she saw a familiar face. Delilah, hi. Got your car back, huh? Delilah called, hurrying up to greet Melissa, a stack of books in her arms. She was wearing a green sleeveless top and white tennis shorts. How's it running? Great. What are you doing here? I'm so happy to see you. Just returned some books to... Della said. Want to wait for me? I will be a sec. Della returned a few minutes later empty-handed. So, what are you doing here? She asked, shielding her eyes from the sun with her hand. It's a weird story, Melissa said, sighing. She wondered if Della would believe her. Yes, Della was such a good friend. She probably would. Della, do you remember a boy about our age who died? His name was Paul something. Paul something. Della laughed. I knew a Greg something and a Mike something, but Paul... No, seriously, Melissa said, leaning back against the shiny fender of her car. He died, Della. He died? Della asked, thinking. I can't think of anyone. Why? Melissa had a sudden thought. You know, I bet he didn't go to Shadyside. He said he was poor and everything. You talked to him? Della asked, confused. I'll bet he went to South, Melissa said, caught up in her own thoughts. She pulled absent-mindedly at a thick lock of her hair. Yeah, I bet he did. Well, my cousin Tracy goes to South, Della said. The one with the teeth? She had them fixed, Della said. Want to see if she's home? Oh. Sure, Melissa said. Do you have anything you have to do right now? Not really, Della replied. Returning the library books was the highlight of my day. I know what you mean. I'm ready for school to start too, Melissa groaned. They climbed into the new car. Della admired the leather seats and inhaled the new car smell as Melissa pulled away from the curb and headed west. Tracy lives in an old village, Della said. I'll direct you. A short while later, Melissa was maneuvering the car through the narrow streets of the old village, where the early residents of Shady had settled, most of them in the 1920s, when the mill opened and the first factories were built. They found Tracy in her small front yard, chasing after two little kids she was babysitting. Tracy was short and thin and had spiked blonde hair. She looked about 10 or 12, even though she was 16. She was wearing faded jean cutoffs and a Hard Rock Cafe t-shirt. Hi, she called. giving up on catching the two laughing kids. Melissa followed Dell up onto the freshly mowed lawn. Hi, Tracy. You remember Melissa? Yeah, sure, Tracy said. You're the one with the hair. And you're the one with the teeth, Melissa said, laughing. Not anymore, she said, and flashed them both a wide, perfect smile. Melissa wanted to ask you about a boy who went to South, Della said. Well, maybe he went to South, Melissa said, handing over to pick up a tennis ball to throw back to the kids. Well, I know most of the kids at South, Tracy said, and then added, unfortunately. Come on, Tracy, Della said. South isn't that bad. It's a pit, she said, kicking a tall weed. But what's the point of complaining? I'm a senior this year. Then I'm out of here. Tracy, do you remember anything about a boy from your school who died? Melissa asked eagerly. Huh? Either this year or last year. Was there a boy from South about our age who died? Well, yeah, there was, Tracy said, wrinkling her forehead. There was a boy who died just before school let out last spring. So, what's going to happen? I am going to stop. I'd like to thank everyone for watching, for tuning in to Fear Street number 7, The Haunted. Now, tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I will not be doing this on Thanksgiving. But on Friday, we will continue on Chapter 11. And this is a self-promotion time. My name is Ruben Shoup. I am the YA horror author of Vampire Juice. It is kind of reminiscent of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Of Fear Street. Do you like Fear Street? I do. And here is the short blurb of Vampire Juice. Amanda and Sean stumble upon a mysterious can of juice while searching for Halloween costumes at a local store. Despite being kicked out by the sales girl, they become obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the strange drink. With the help with some local bullies, they sneak back into the store through a crypt in the graveyard, only to find themselves in the midst of a spine-chilling adventure. Kind of interesting. They discover a can of vampire juice. Now, a clerk kicks them out, kind of venomously, and that would be the end of the story, right? Wrong. That would be the fun of that. We couldn't stop there. Too boring. So they sneak into a crypt in the graveyard. Sneak a secret tunnel that leads to the store. Interesting, huh? All right. Well, thank you for watching. And my link is in the bio, and I will see you on Friday. Have a good day. Happy shopping, probably, huh? And now.